Is there anything that you have found you would do differently when raising your own children? Like, would you add your culture, your religion? Would you make different decisions versus how your parents raised you?
I would let my children choose their path, however it is. It doesn't matter. I don't think that they should be brought into this world, first of all, forcefully, because, kid doesn't choose to be born. Two grown adults did the deed, and here you are. So they don't need to be forcefully brought into this world to be told or pointed at a certain direction, just because that is the role that they need to follow. I feel like the parent should guide the kid. Um, so in my case, I would guide my children towards a good, good future. I would make sure that they're healthy, that they have food in their in their fridge, that they have a roof to sleep under, and that they know that if they ever need anything, I will be there for them.
I do have a daughter, and I hope that I am doing differently, and I hope that I'm doing the best I can. And the first step, I decided, like I said earlier, moving to my dad, and that's something that I want. I want her mental stability, emotional stability, physical stability, and I think that was the best decision. Also, her father was never there to help financially, but I never kept him away from her or her from him, and I did it because of her. It's her father, and I think she deserves to spend quality time with him. I've never neglected, like him to see her. She's allowed to go with him till today. Again, my dad never spoke bad about my mom. I've never done that. She doesn't know the things that happened. FYI, I went through domestic violence, so it's not something that I just decided to leave that man. No, I went through some stuff, and my mom, I would say she always told me, like, why do you let him see her? Why do you let her go with him? And I was like, Mom, that's my daughter, and I will not do the things the way you did it. So, those things are like there. I didn't want her to do the things the way my mom did or the way that my dad did. It was something that it was whatever is best for my child. So till today, she doesn't know anything. And what I can tell is that little by little, the more they're growing, they are able to realize who is who in their life. She asked me one time why my dad never been into one of my presentations in school. And I was like, I don't know. Ask him. Why don't you invite him? So I don't put those things that poison in her head, and I think I'm doing something different by doing that.
Yeah, no, I think it was actually Brian that shared that with me. That is very traumatizing to a child when the parents are speaking negatively about each other, because it's hard for them to decipher who's right, who should I side with. That's just something that children shouldn't have to go through. Their children, you should let them be children and deal with it as the two adults. But thank you for sharing.
I have three children, as you guys know. So mine range from 18, 12, and 13. So it's a lot going on. And I am married. So it's a little different because, I know you guys are talking about certain things, but, I got to hear everybody's life story and I got to hear everything that's going on. And I could kind of relate to everybody. In my way, I could relate to everybody because I grew up where my family was a domestic. I grew up where my mom was never there. Um, I've always worked. So it was one of those things, like I always told myself with my kids, I wanted to do better. So I've been around for my kids. I did change some things. I will say this though. I wish, if I could say anything, I wish that I would have installed in them something that my mom gave me, which is to appreciate, because I did the mistake of giving my kids everything they wanted because I never had anything. And now they don't they don't feel like they have to work for it. They feel entitled.
Yes.
And it's one of those things I have tried myself to say, no, I can't do that. I can't give you everything. You're not entitled. You don't deserve it. It's a privilege. It's a privilege to what you have. So to me, it's a little bit different because when I hear you guys' story, I can relate. And I relate to everybody. When I was 4 years old, my mom, I think I was like 4 or 5, my mom split up with my dad. When I was 8 years old, it was a constant on and off battle with my mom and dad. Were always in jail. I never got to see them for a while. And then my entire life, I've just been a migrant worker. I've always worked doing everything, you name it. Anything was seasonal. I went to 13 schools, at least elementary schools, 8 middle schools, 5 high schools.
For
I've
the
never
people in the audience,
any friends to actually relate to anything. You know what I mean? It's always been a working life.
Ruby, for the people that may not know what a migrant worker is, can you explain that?
Yeah, it's something seasonal. Like you move with the season. So let's just say, for example, right now we're starting strawberry season. I don't do it no more, but we are starting strawberry season. So right now you're planting the strawberries. In about 4 or 5 months, we will be moving because the strawberry season is done around, I want to say like, trying to think, December is when you start picking. So around February, usually you're done picking and you move up north and you will go and let's say you're going to do apples. You're going to pick apples and you never have an actual stable place because you're constantly moving around every 6 months.
To follow
There is nothing there. You just pack and leave.
And this was since you were 4?
Since I was 8.
Since you were 8. Do you feel like that how you were raised affected your relationships?
Yes. Of course.
Because I know you said you'd never had a chance to make friends because you were moving.
Correct. So I never got close to anybody. I didn't have to. I couldn't. Because every 6 months, every 4 months, you're leaving. There was no point. Does that make sense? Like, what's the point of getting to know someone if you're going to pack up and leave? Why even get to know them? You're someone that exists, but you'll exist now, not later. And that was my life.
How about your relationship now? Like, do you feel like it affected your romantic relationship? Or do you feel like that was separate?
I think it was hard to adjust. It was hard to adjust because of having that stable. Yeah, having someone stable. It was one of those things like, okay, any minute now, you're going to pack up and leave. Like, bye. So it was the adjustment of having to realize you're actually going to have something stable for the first time in your life. There was never this thing of having that. And I think that took me the longest time, to realize, wait, there's actually more to this than just not having
like
the stability
he's
or the
not
trust.
going anywhere.
Correct. There was always drama. There was always, my mom, like I said, when I was young, my mom and dad both got arrested for domestic violence. They got in a fight in the streets. I tried to take out my dad out of the vehicle, the cop car, and they both went, and we stayed pretty much alone. And I have, like I said, I don't know if you guys know, but I had 8 sisters. I have 7 sisters and 2 brothers. So it was one thing, we all raised each other. We didn't know what to do without each other because we had to raise each other. We hate each other, but loved each other. And I think that was just one of the things that I always remember is, yes, there was constantly, every day there was a cops in my house. Every day I woke up and someone was getting arrested. Every day I would go and I'm like, okay, my mom's gone. I got to feed my brother and my sister. Or who
was this here in America or was this in Mexico? Because I know you lived both.
This was here in America. I was in Mexico for a while there. Mm-hmm. I did live in Mexico. I got smacked a few times. You don't talk back. Whatever they tell you to do, you do. Otherwise, you get smacked. It was not fun. So, yeah. And
then did you answer the raising, how if you would raise your children differently than the way you were raised? That's the last question. Would.
Yeah, I think I did, but yes, I would definitely raise my children differently. I mean, I do. I have raised my children differently, In my household, when I was young, education was not important. It never was, and they didn't care. It was, you wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, you start working, and your shift ended at 6 o'clock in the evening, and you just work. That was what I was brought up, installed in me. And I told my kids, no, you're going to go to school, you're going to better yourself and be something better than what I was. I've dropped out. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I dropped out and I got my GD, but prior to me dropping out, what you see is not what you would have gotten years ago. I got associated with gangs, drugs, lots of drugs. I did so many drugs.
So many.
I did. I'm not gonna lie. I got into a lot of shit that if you knew me back then, a lot of people that know me, they're like, "What the fuck happened, girl?" Sorry, but they will tell me like, "Hey, what happened to you?" And they realize that I'm not the person I used to be. I'm complete different from when I was, but back then it was what I thought was my family. I would look for them and I'm like, oh my God, they actually accept me. They like me.
If I could turn back the hands of times, I picked differently as far as the choice of person I like, my wife or whoever I ended up with. I definitely picked differently. I pick a whole lot differently. I also wanted to respond to what was said about letting kids be who they are, and we're here just to, sort of guide them. Um, I think the world is in the state it's in today. It's because people today are letting kids try and choose their direction, and people seem to feel that if you're telling a child what to do, then you're not letting them like be who they are meant to be. And to be honest, I think that's like the biggest load of whatever, because it just lends to it leads down a destructive path basically. So if there is no guidance, there is no rules, and this person feels that this or that, or they can do this, or they feel like they should do that. Like I watch kids all the time, with their parents and how they act, and there's just there's no hold on that child. They can scream, they can say what they want. They come into my store, and they be talking loudly, or and I just look at them and like, excuse me, why are you in my store? Could you keep the noise down, or could you not touch that? They're not used to people saying that to them, and I'm just speaking normally. Don't touch that, it's gonna fall. What you mean don't touch that? I said, and then when they question me back, and I just turn it up. I said don't touch it, or you can leave. You have a choice, and they just simmer down. Kids are not used to, not even let alone a man having someone speak to them in a firm manner, just to check them. So this path that we're going down, where we're allowing people to freely do as they feel, rather than actually say no, don't do that. That's not good. This is best. And it's trickling off into adulthood, where the adults live by no rules, and now the kids are copying the adults, because those those when we took the fathers out of the home years ago, with the government, whatever, that's when we started to go off track. So, and that's where we are nowadays. So I mean, it's all over society. You're walking down the sidewalk, you see four little girls taking up the whole sidewalk, and you're walking to the side. And you have to stop and say, are you young ladies going to move over so other people can pass by? Just simple stuff, simple manners. Manners is just, it
It's
doesn't
lost.
exist, and all of these little things affect the way we treat one another. Like here in London, like all of a sudden guys are shooting one another. That was unheard of. Like we've had like this past 2 weeks, like two or three shootings, which is not a lot by some countries, but doesn't happen here. It's
Mhm.
just, it's just like this lawlessness is coming in, and it comes down from politics. Because I listen to the political talk show, radio shows, and the government, people are asking the politicians, "What are you going to do about this?" And they're like, um, they don't want to make a decision because they're scared of hurting people's feelings, or somebody, it just trickles down. So we're we're on a path right now. The world is on a destructive path. There are a bunch of people trying to do the right thing, but to the majority of people, it's like, whatever, let them do what they want. Let them do, how they feel. And it's just wrong. It's
I
not
do
there.
think that was a good point that you made about children aren't even used to someone speaking to them, and you said
Yeah,
with a firmness and authoritative manner. But I feel like children aren't used to people speaking to them at all. A lot of children are being
exactly.
raised by a device. They're like, here, there's your phone or there's your tablet. That's your babysitter. So they don't
Yeah,
even have communication. So I think they're losing they don't even know how to connect anymore. They have
yeah,
all these devices that help you connect with the world. They don't even know how to connect with the person in front of them. They don't know how to have conversations
yeah.
anymore. The parents
I think,
aren't being active. So I do think a parent should be active. Your child should learn from you. They should know
yeah,
how to handle themselves in this world coming from you. You should be a dominant force and example in their lives. It shouldn't be the school. It shouldn't be the television. It should be their friends. What they believe should be based on what you teach them at home first,
yeah.
and then
But
everything else is added to it.
it's difficult if the mother has to do it all. It's difficult if the father has to do it all.
That's what we're
Because
talking about. That balance was like
yeah,
so
because
important.
because one is, I know that if I raise my kids just by myself, they're gonna be hard. They're gonna be like, but then they need the mother. They need the soft
They
touch. They
need that
need the
nurturing
emotion.
side.
They
Yeah,
need the nurturing. Yes. So with like, I think the mother did a good job with my kids. Like, they got the love, but then they come to me and they understand that once, because we had two cars. We had two cars. When if you saw the mom's car, there was chips and drinks and spoons and stale stains all in the seats. The mother's car looked like a dump. When they got in my car, and I remember one time the mother gave him some cookies and said, "Don't you touch that cookie until we get to where we're going." They put the cookie back in the bag, set it next to them, and when we got out the car, they got the cookie and they ate the cookie. My car was immaculate. They understood that. It's so weird. I'm like, how can you get into your daddy's car? Understand? You're not, they weren't upset or anything. And they're just like, okay, daddy, and just put it down. And they got in their mom's car and they just went wild. They're just like it looked like they were throwing the food around the car and like I'm like, yo, it's just yeah, so you if like I know it was and that's where we have the problem today, where they're coming with me and they understand they need to do, but then they get to go back with mom and then do whatever. So and then they grow up in a way that's just what we have today.